everyone. Happy Monday. Hey, will agentic AI kill the SaaS radio star? You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey everyone, Alan Schimmel here from Techstrong Gang. Welcome to our Monday show. Happy Monday to you. You know what? New Year's is over. Get back into the full swing of thing. No one's waiting around for you or going to give you any kind of, easy time off. We were all back to work. And there's a lot going on. We've got a great gang to talk about it today. Let me introduce you to them. First of all, it's kind of some of our regular Monday gang members joining us from home in New Mexico. Deploy Hub CEO. Actually, I see you're speaking. Are you speaking at the CDF or doing something with that, Tracy?
I have submitted to speak for the CDF.
Submitted.
I did get reelected to the Open SSF governing board.
Yeah, you
and we
did.
did,
Great.
and we initiated a new SIG at the CDF that I'm in charge of called CICD Cybersecurity. So maybe that's what you saw.
Oh, that's maybe what I saw. That sounds like one I may want to get involved in. Let's talk.
No, I heard that election was stolen. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, actually, I was really shocked. I was like, I can't believe I
Count
got
on
reelected.
Mike. Count on Mike to bring. I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to take it. Tracy, welcome. Let's move on. Moving into Texas. I assume he's in Texas, though I see, well, there's leaves on the tree. You got to be somewhere where there's still leaves on trees. He's Futurum analyst, VI co-founder, Guy Currier. Hey, Guy, how are you, man?
Good. Yeah, I got back from Vegas and CES.
How was
one in the morning
CES?
last night? My first CES ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say one thing: it's big.
Yes, it is. Yes,
That is
it
a big show.
So I got a cryptic message last night from Lisa Martin at CES that she found my flying car.
Yeah, there was a flying car there. It was a car that looked a lot like a cross between a Cybertruck and a Humvee that had where a very heavy it had 6 wheels on it, by the way, and a heavy drone like platform pulls out of the back and you attach it to the roof, and then all these flying cars these days have like all these multiple propellers and all that kind of thing.
More like an Osprey aircraft than, let's say, a Harrier jump jet or an F-35 jump jet.
Look more like a drone than a Jetsons flying.
It looks like a giant drone with a couple people inside. I'm sure.
So it doesn't fold up into a briefcase then?
No, it doesn't fold up into a briefcase, and you don't launch it out of your garage.
Not interested.
It's probably a 1-hour process to get that thing on the back, but it was slick. I mean, the automotive presence there is really big, and so there's just so much implication to everything they're doing on that side of the sort of consumer side of the fence to everything we're doing in the enterprise. So it was good.
Cool. Well, welcome and thanks for being here, Guy.
Good to be here.
Move on there up to high up into the mountains to the guitar man, right? Mitch Ashley, Futurum analyst VP. Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Hey, good to be here from the single-digit lows of Colorado.
Digits?
Single digits, man. We've had
That's
some
not
cold
like
weather.
Colorado. Usually it changes.
It's January. That's when we have our cold spell usually.
Hang on, we have an international audience. We're in the single digits here in Austin. It's just on a different scale.
Oh, Celsius single digit. Okay.
Are you in Celsius single digits? No. Is it that cold there, Guy?
Oh yeah. It's the high today is in the low 40s, but yesterday the high was around 36 Fahrenheit.
Ooh, that is chilly.
Well, it's 3 degrees in New Mexico this morning.
Ooh, you're colder than we are. So.
Well, we were cold yesterday, but it's in the mid 70s and sunny today. So it's good to be a Florida Gator. I'm still in my college football thing from the Orange Bowl. Moving on from Mitchell, though. Mitch, thanks for being here today. I don't know how cold it is, though. You can never tell from the flannel shirts he wears every day lately. It's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard.
It's 40 degrees here, baby. And you know what? It's balmy.
So balmy 40. All right. Well, welcome, gang members. Thanks for being here. We're going to kick things off today. You know, Satya Nadella from Microsoft recently did an interview on someone's podcast, and he basically said SaaS is dead. Well, it will be soon. You know, maybe a little premature to print the obituary, but you know, he claims the killer is agentic AI. Mike, why don't
Yeah,
you
and
kick
we've
it?
alluded to this in some previous conversations we've had about this, where the debate is, am I going to use all these AI agents in the SaaS applications provided by Salesforce, or am I going to go and just have my own and maybe stitch it all together? Of course, I think Microsoft has a dream where you're just going to use their agents for everything, and you're going to turn all these other applications into headless services, essentially, where I'm never going to see them. I'm just going to invoke, whether it's a spreadsheet or a CRM app or whatever it is, I'm just going to call on that, but I'm never actually going to go enter something into it because the agent will do that. But Mitch, I know you're tracking this. What's your take?
Well, I think it was a really good interview. If you get a chance to listen to the podcast, it's an hour and something long. He's not on all of it, but essentially the SaaS is dead is the clickbait coming out of it. He was really saying, I think, here's how I interpret what he was saying is the use of AI and use of AI agents is kind of the next evolution of our software architecture. You can say whether it's a revolution or not, but we've been through this process, right? We just have been through the cloud native transition with microservices and containers and breaking things up and distributing them and orchestrators. That was, what we've kind of living with now. And the next evolution of that is those microservices, if you want to think of them that way, or parts of our applications, are AI agents. They don't have to be software that we've written traditionally, or maybe it's software written by the agent itself. To me, it's kind of a whole lot of nothing, because there's a lot said about, well, Excel is just a GUI on top of a database. Well, so is every other application.
But that's exactly the point he said, that virtually all business applications are no more than a database with a GUI on top of it.
So my response is, no shit. It's been that way for decades. When we started
Mitchell.
separating the user interface, sorry, it's Monday, so I had to start
Where's our PG rating?
Yeah, I'll bring it back.
Now I got to put a warning on: flashing lights and Mitchell cursing.
Model view controller. Have you heard
Unless
of
you
model
watch
view
it after 10
controller?
p.m.
If you've been in software for any length of time, we've been separating the user interface from the business logic from the database access. It's the same thing. It's a new form of that, right? There's not any real new news here, other than just saying he wants everything to be agents on the back end instead of traditional software. Okay, all right, that's news. I don't think it is. So I think it's not a whole lot of nothing, as in he's not saying anything. He's just saying this is where software is going and where he thinks what it thinks it's going to look like. Is it the death of SaaS? No, heck no. I mean, all of it is going to be SaaS in some way, if you want to think of it that way. It's part back end of apps, front end of apps, living in clouds, talking over AIs. We'll have orchestrators for AI. Maybe it's Kubernetes, maybe it's something else that'll be managing all these agents. So I think it's just kind of it's an interesting conversation if you sort of peel away the clickbait part of it, but it isn't spelling the death of software, period.
So
I don't associate
I'm
normally.
in agreement. I'm in agreement with Mitch, 100%.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
So let me see if I could massage this so you guys can get your head around it, because obviously it struck a nerve with both of you, right?
And me.
And Guy as well. All right. So you can't be so attached. They're cattle, not pets, guys. Okay. Here's what I think here's what Satya is getting at, and here's how I look at it. Will there be stuff hosted in the cloud? Yeah, of course there will be. The data is going to be up there in the cloud. So if you look at apps at their component level, and Mitchell, you said it, you agree with this. There's the data, there's the GUI, there's the business logic. Those are the three components here, right? Those are the three components. the data is not going nowhere. We're going to still need the data, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about the data, stupid, right? The GUI, I think GUIs are changing. I think one of the things that Gen AI and this whole chatbot revolution kind of thing or evolution has taught us is you don't really need a GUI. I think people would much prefer to talk to their computer and tell them what it wants, a la Scotty in Star Trek, hello, computer. Um, yeah, so I think a GUI is the GUIs as we know it as the experience is, I think, going to give way to just a much more simpler human computer interface. The business logic is the weak point here. And I think that's what Satya is talking about. The business logic will be controlled by agents. Now, what I find really fascinating is for the last 3 years, I don't know how much wind we've spent or exhaled talking about, well, what's after Kubernetes? Is there anything on the horizon that can replace Kubernetes? We got something. I don't think Kubernetes becomes the orchestrator for AI agents. I think we're going to see something new. And these agents are going to represent the business logic in apps. And this could be a Kubernetes replacement on the horizon, whatever comes out to do that. Now, does that mean that SaaS is going away? No, we're still going to host stuff in the web and access it. Does it mean SaaS apps as we think of them with the pretty, they're not so pretty, but with the interfaces that we type into and all of that is going away? Yeah, I think so.
I'm always a little suspicious about the timing of these conversations. So walk this through with me. Like, what's the motivation for saying this now? Seems to me, this is almost a bold-faced effort to tank the valuations of some of those SaaS companies, with basically trying to say that all these things are going to wind up being features of some AI agentic framework. And maybe, just maybe, if those valuations tank, we'll start to see a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So maybe this is an effort to reduce the cost of buying other companies for 2025. Call me suspicious.
You're so cynical.
No, I
You're
think
cynical.
I want to look at the Mike. I want to look at I would love to look at the Copilot roadmap, because Copilot right now is not, to my knowledge, particularly agentic in release, but I guess that's where it's going.
That's another thing, Guy, that, to counter Mike's argument. Where does Microsoft make a lot of money today? Hosting SaaS-based apps in the cloud.
Your agents in the cloud, right?
So, so my perspective is sort of, I think, very long perspective. I mean, Mike, you might remember way back in the day when we were at Zip Davis together. One of the little themes I had at the time was what we are calling cloud computing today. We're just going to call computing in 10 years. And I think that played out. I mean, we're not calling it computing exactly, but just everything is cloud, so to speak, unless it's not. And the distinction has to do with use case, if anything. And there are, so like it's just part of the infrastructure landscape right now. Similarly, I don't see why SaaS dies because agentic AI takes over. It's just what we call agentic AI right now. We're going to just call SaaS tomorrow still or something. If you follow me, it's a way to deliver software as a service. Now the software is hosted and run by agentic AI. It morphs more. It responds to you. It learns all those sorts of things that you expect it to do. But how is it exactly different from SaaS? That's what I don't understand at all.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't get my head wrapped around either. It's like, why is this not a software as a service? Just because the technology
It is. That's exactly.
It is.
But it's
Exactly.
not the software as a service app as we've known it. I think that's the point.
Okay,
here.
great.
That's fine. Yeah.
And I do think the future of Copilot is to become an agent, and maybe Copilot becomes that agent orchestrator, right? There'll be multiple agents.
I have a different view of Copilot. My prediction is Copilot overtakes the IDE for people. Essentially, A Copilot is an
Yes.
adjunct additive to an IDE today. The more Copilot does, or whatever form it becomes, essentially that becomes your new IDE, especially for non-developers, if you will. But that's the orchestrator of your development process, creating software, creating bots, managing bots, whatever it is. I think that's kind of where it's heading, at least in my view of it. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see what happens.
We'll
But
see.
I don't
that's where
know.
I think it's going.
Microsoft describes Azure as, quote, the world's computer. This is the same Microsoft that it's always been. Every time it looks at something, it says, here's this one unified thing that we're going to own end to end, and everything else is, get out of the way or be absorbed.
We are in a hype cycle, and we have to consider a lot of what we see coming out of what I like to call a giant's hype. It happens for every single time we change technology. Look at all the hype that was around Kubernetes, and rightfully so. We had a lot to learn. And we have a lot to learn about AI and how we're going to apply it. And there may be some really interesting outcomes of that, in particular, distributed databases where there's data across smaller chunks of data across organizations, or even open data that these AI agents can get information from. But it's just an evolution of software. So I guess that's where I was struggling. And yes, I would love to ditch the mouse. I'm so tired of my mouse, but I still want my keyboard.
I hear
So-
you.
So here's
yeah.
I want to say give my interpretation of what Satya was saying. What he was saying was that right now you buy a set of a set of software, some of which are SaaS, that carry out certain functions for you for your job function. What he's saying is that's going to be replaced by an AI agent or a package of AI agents that are for you and your function and you as a person and how you carry out your work. And those will go and get the necessary CRUD functions and put them together and change them as you and learn and grow with you, so to speak. So instead of buying SaaS, you're buying AI agents. I think that's what he meant. But that is, I agree with the panel here, a distinction without a difference.
I think we need to introduce a new term, which is agentic hype, building off of what you said.
So on that note,
Hype.ai.
let me tie a bow on this one and we'll break. Today's Monday, right? I do Monday, January 13th. I do believe that 2025 is going to be the year of agentic AI. I think we've got to stop looking at AI as a monolith and recognize that there are divisions and features within the AI monolith, and agentic AI is one, and it's going to be huge. But if you're really interested in what 2025 has in store, tomorrow is our Predict 2025 session. I'm doing a great panel with a bunch of C-level folks on what DevOps and AI have in store in 2025. Mitch, I saw you
Yeah,
doing your
I'm doing
session the other day.
my top 10 predictions.
Top 10
of,
predictions. And
DevOps
that's good.
and
That's
AI in
bold.
development.
We will replay that during Christmas next year and either
That's right.
laugh
We'll
at
do
you.
them backwards. We'll do a David
no
Letterman
doubt.
show or something.
Guy, I think
Is-
you have a session too, no?
I do.
You want to say anything about it?
Yeah, it's
Work with me, Guy.
My prediction is that 2025 will be the year of the fragile app.
The Fragile app.
My prediction is my AI agent will be able to beat up your AI agent. That's what
That's part of what's going to make my app fragile. Because,
Okay. Predict 2025. Go to predict2025.com right now. Register. It's free. I've got Daniel Newman talking about stuff. We've got Stephen Foskett, so a bunch of the Futurum folks. But we've got people from, I think, Google, Microsoft, a bunch of the great DevOps people, good cyber stuff. Don't miss it. Predict 2025. You're watching Techstrong Gang. We'll be back in a minute. Hey everyone, it's Sunny.
And share.
Ladies and gentlemen, tech enthusiasts and future gazers, gather round. The biggest, boldest, most mind-blowing predictions for 2025 are coming your way at the Predict 2025 virtual event on January 9th.
Oh, Sonny, you're predicting something again. Last time you tried this, You said Laserdiscs were the future. How'd that work out for you?
Hey, Cher. Not every prediction's a hit, but that's why we've got the real experts this time. Top analysts, visionaries, and tech leaders sharing what's going to rock our world in 2025.
So no sunny predictions this time? No flying toasters making a comeback?
Very funny, Cher. But seriously, we're talking AI breakthroughs, cybersecurity game changers, the future of DevOps, cloud innovations, and so much more.
And what about my favorite prediction, a smart mirror that tells you how fabulous you look every morning? That's real innovation.
You're already ahead of the tech, Cher. But if you want to hear the really big stories in tech for 2025, you've got to tune in on January 9th. The event kicks off at 8:45 a.m. Eastern and runs until 2:30 p.m.
And the best part, it's all virtual. No stuffy conference rooms, no long commutes. Just grab your coffee, your laptop, and join us from anywhere in the world.
You know what else? It's not just predictions. It's insights, strategies, and a whole lot of fun.
Well, Sonny, if this event is as good as you say, maybe they'll finally name a technology after you, like the Sonny 2.0, predicting your jokes before you tell them.
That's a good one, Cher. But the real joke is if you're missing out on this. So don't miss Predict 2025.
That's right. Mark your calendars, January 9th, 8:45 a.m. Eastern. Be there or you'll miss the biggest scoop on the future of tech.
See you at Predict
2025.
Be there.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about AI and DevOps again because there was 2 reports last week, one from IBM, one from Harness, both highlighting that, well, maybe all the things are not quite cracked up as they were hyped. We're back to that word again. The issue seems to be that the AI tools are generating code without any context for the production environment. So the code doesn't run, and then people spend more time debugging the code than it would if they had actually written it themselves in the first place. At least that's the theory. But Tracy, I know you've been kind of following this all last year, and we're coming into this year. And what is the fundamental issue that we need to kind of work through here to make all this AI stuff really work?
Well, I think first we have to separate out DevOps, to be honest. I would say Dev has embraced AI, with tools like Copilot. Even myself, I use ChatGPT to generate my markdown for my websites. There's quite a bit that we do on the development side. But to be quite honest, DevOps hasn't really changed that much. And there may be tooling out there like, AI in testing that can be updated in the DevOps process. But I think this survey and this article and this information is spot on. We have, I feel like, thrown DevOps out the door a bit. And to say that we're doing DevOps and AI throughout the life cycle is simply wrong. We're not. So when we see these surveys, I think we have to, I participate in surveys when they come across, but it states that 99% are using coding tools infused with AI, which is probably right, but few of them are implementing any kind of really solid AI practices in the DevOps pipeline. And I'm very black and white about this. There's no gray for me when it comes to a Jenkins workflow. And have we changed anything in that over the course of time? Not really. We have not evolved the core process of our software factory floor. So while we talk about it, there is a lot of hype in what we talk about. Just being able to use AI to go out and find somebody to approve your code isn't enough. It's really not enough. And most of the DevOps engineers that I speak to, they don't have a lot of experience in what we need to do in the DevOps pipeline to start catching these kinds of problems. We rely on somebody to check in code and then approve it and push it across. The DevOps engine starts working. Is it going to find code that wasn't really written well? I don't think so. It could scan it and find out that it's got, it's pretty clean, but does it work well? I don't know. So I feel like we are in this hype cycle for AI. A lot of these companies want to get out in front saying that they're doing AI and life cycle management, but it's not happening. In reality, I don't see it. And I'd love for the panel to prove me wrong.
I think that's exactly right. I think that AI is an assist in so many helpful ways to get you started. I call it a reliability and a quality boost, but the quality part requires your intervention review. If what you're aiming for is speed, then I think you're just going to get more garbage faster, and that's what we're seeing. If you disconnect that speed, productivity, if you like, element of it that really honestly gets all the focus. But if you take that out and you realize that you can produce better annotated, better functioning, and more reliably produced code that still runs through the same processes that you already had, then you're using it well. And I think that the developer community as a whole has not realized this. And what was not as clear to me, although you have pointed out to me a few times, Tracy, is the stress it's putting on ops teams, for whom the code is the code is the code, and nonetheless they have to deal with the consequences. So it was very illuminating in that sense. One thing I noticed also, though, was that this survey covered both the coding side and the incorporation of services side, and that's a whole other reliability question, right? Which is incorporation and use of services, which can and should change over time, as pointed out in the article. That creates its own set of instabilities and its own, if I may say so, fragilities that can affect the app performance and outcomes.
I see what you
think
did
we're
there,
still
Guy.
at the-
I'm sorry, Mitch. Go ahead.
We're still at the individual productivity level with AI and development. It's a co-pilot. It's an augmentation to the work. Maybe there's some agentic functions that it performs. Software quality teams still have to treat all code as suspect, whether it's AI generated or not. They kind of have to not care. Everything needs to go through the quality process. And to your point, Tracy, it hasn't made AI has not made its way into the workflows, into the pipelines, into the CI/CD, into the processes underlying it. At least not yet. Maybe they'll start to happen in 2025. But I think maybe it's agentic AI or AI agents that will help us start to move beyond just helping Mitch as an individual developer, or help you as an individual software tester, whatever it might be. But we haven't changed the underlying framework of how DevOps works. And it's a lot to disrupt. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like, oh, let's go change this. To your point, Tracy, there's a lot of Jenkins and Circle CI and everything else, CI/CD pipelines that you don't want to touch, because when those things break, it's not one of them, it's dozens. And how do you diagnose that and fix it? So it's definitely a place for some disruption, but I think you have to look at it as productivity of the process, not productivity of the individual.
So, Mitch, to that point, I'd love to get your thoughts. I was talking to Nick Durkin, who's the field CTO for Harness, and he was of the opinion, and admittedly, this is biased on his part, but he was saying that the AI agents used for coding need to be aware of the AI agents that will be used for the ops side of the equation, and that you need to have a cohesive framework for those things. Otherwise, you're going to have scenarios where the AI agent used for the coding tool is going to be working at cross purposes from the AI agent used for the CI/CD and the ops side of the equation. So I don't know if we need to rethink this, or, can all these AI agents find some way to be compatible?
Well, maybe that's kind of where Guy's going with his fragile app idea, but it's everybody's, or every AI agent doing whatever it's doing in its own context limited world, of course, could very easily work across purposes, right? My AI agent can beat up your AI agent. One of the things that helps is not the silver bullet, but is that context knowledge graph, right? So that I know, well, by changing this bit of code, that affects these people in operations or security or whatever functionality. It's the broader context of what's happening. And I don't know that we've got sophisticated enough knowledge graphs to solve all the problems that might come up from, AI generated code, but that's at least the start of what we're using to try to add more context than just a single user.
I'll
And I
tell you,
think
This
that
is a
one of the
terrific point. This is a true. Where does context come from in these? Is it come? Does it come from the people who train the AI in a certain sense? Like you are talking about two different context lobes, dev and ops. Where at the point of prompt does the context come from, other than the user?
Tracy?
Well, in this discussion, I just want to create a use case. My niece told me when I asked her about, she's got a new job just out of college. She told me once she could generate 6,000 lines of code a day, but she couldn't figure out what was in it. And in this Harness survey, it says in here, I'm just reading, that 67% of developers spend more time debugging AI-generated code, which is kind of what she was telling me. But even more concerning, 68% spend more time resolving AI-related security vulnerabilities. So I think sometimes it's, more code is not always better. And in these AI-generated environments, these AI where the developers are starting to use AI to generate their code, they have to get better at learning how to use it. What she told me was she's starting to stop. She's not using it as often now. I just talked to her this over Christmas. And what she's learned to do is be more specific in using AI when she gets stuck on a particular function. So she's trying to minimize how she's using AI because of the issues that she found with having to debug it. Because she said, if AI generates it, I can't debug it as quickly. I don't understand it. So it's harder to see what it's doing. So that's a very real use case for somebody who's just out of college, got her first coding job, and having to learn to use these tools. So it's kind of like prompt training, right? How do you get better code generated because you're not asking it to do everything, you're only asking it to do smaller functions. Now, if teams get better at using AI, then maybe these numbers will come down. But if right now we're relying so much on AI and tools like Copilot just to go out there and generate this stuff, we had better be running some good SBOMs and understanding what it's pulling in, understanding the licenses. If it's, if these tools are not approved across the organization, we have to understand if they're compliant within the organization. So there is so much more to do that AI could be solving for us than just generating code. And it kind of goes back to some conversations we had last year about the ghost developer, right? And I complained, I said, it's not just about coding. There's so much more that's done in software development that we're not trying to use AI to solve that could be done. And I think that we should be seeing maybe a prediction for 2025 is that, AI ops will start having more conversations about AI ops. And what that is using AI
Oh,
to
that term's been
improve our
corrupted.
ops.
That term's been corrupted for ML.
I know, but it needs to be clarified because we need to learn how to pull this stuff into the DevOps pipeline and start fixing it.
So I got some thoughts. I've listened to you all here, and I got, I should have been taking notes because my brain won't remember everything, but I got a lot to unpack here. So first of all, I mentioned before about the need for an AI agent orchestrator. That's exactly, Mitch, what you're talking about, guide that you're talking about, right? My dev AI agent doesn't really jive with my ops AI agent, and it doesn't really jive with my security AI agent. And so they're working at odds and loggerheads to each other. That's a temporary phase, and that too shall pass, right? We're going to have some sort of agent orchestrator that makes sure these things are in concert.
Is that going to pass like a kidney stone? Just want to make sure I understand.
No, it's like your grandmother told you when you were younger, don't worry, that too shall pass. It's just a phase. You were experimenting. But anyway, yeah, but so that's number one. Number two, to say, what challenges and what failures or successes we've had in AI and DevOps is like looking with a very tiny telescope at Uranus or Neptune and trying to tell me if there's oxygen there or gold there or something. Yeah, trying to figure out what's going on in that planet from a small telescope here on Earth or even a distant star. You don't see the features. You're seeing a blob, right? But yet when we dive in beneath the clouds to the individual pieces, we are seeing AI at every step of the way. We are clearly devs are using AI. Are they overusing it? The experience of your niece, Tracy, again, that's a phase that'll pass as AI gets better, right? You're going to have less security bugs. It's already measurably better than it was a year and a half ago, right? Which is why it's being used more. So, and it'll continue to get better. I think the other thing is, you haven't mentioned platform engineering. And I think that's a big story for 2025. It was a big story in 2024. I'll remind you all, platformengineering.com. Check it out. It's one of our sites. I think that's where the agents for ops live. In many ways, platform engineering is more about the ops than it is necessarily DevOps or, there's not, platform engineering didn't invent a lot of new things. It reused a lot of old things. And so it sets up that environment for the devs to go faster. And so is platform engineering using agents or AI? I think we're going to see more and more of that in 2025, right? And I think the role of platform engineering in ops is going to be a huge story. Right now, we've thought of platform engineering and how it's helped devs, right? Because they don't have to build their own environment. But it's really about ops best practices. So I think that's another thing in here.
I think it's going to be a cultural issue as much as a technical issue. And my prediction is that a year from now, we'll still be talking about this same problem.
Well, absolutely, but it'll be better. One other thing I wanted to mention, Tracy, you mentioned Jenkins. Look, tomorrow at Predict 25, another subtle plug for Predict 25, we're going to announce the winners of the DevOps Dozen Awards. Now, those good folks at KPMG have given me the silver briefcase, so I know who won already. KPMG didn't do it. But just, I recently watched some awards. The Golden Globes, and they had the KPMG guys. But I've looked at the winners for the DevOps Dozen Awards. I'm announcing them tomorrow. You'd be surprised. What's old is new again, and some things don't change in terms of what DevOps tools and CI/CD tools still rule the roost. And they're not what you would think of when you say, what's AI empowered? But yet when you look under the covers, they're using more AI for testing, both security testing, quality testing. Security and quality can be the same thing. Load testing, unit testing. There's AI being used in deciding what my test coverage is, what tests run, how tests run. In moving things along the pipeline. So again, when you look at the planet through the telescope, you may not see it. But if you could dive down under the clouds and get to the surface a little bit, there's all these little things going on that are using AI. And at some point, it just dawns on you and say, wow, it's all over the place. It's ubiquitous. And I'm going to leave us with that word, ubiquitous. Let's take a break on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about who's gaming the GitHub stars. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Modernize your business to fuel innovation and elevate customer experiences. With the Builder Community Hub, AWS and its partner network provide essential tools for transforming applications and infrastructure to fully leverage the cloud. Discover free trials, in-depth demos, and essential resources to empower DevOps engineers and developers to deliver value faster and more reliably. Visit the Builder Community Hub to learn more.
All right, folks, we're back on the C block, and There was a report that came out over the holidays talking about how the bad guys have figured out how to game the GitHub system. They are creating code, sticking it in a repository, and figuring out how to give themselves a whole lot of stars that entice people to download that stuff. And surprise, surprise, it's loaded with malware. And we've seen GitHub kind of evolve for all the good things it does. It's also become a distribution network for malware. So I feel like something needs to be done here. But Alan, what's your take on what's going on here, and how do we kind of make this work in a way as intended?
Well, this is not a new problem, as you said, Mike. This is the developer dilemma akin to people who believe Amazon reviews, right? You go to Amazon and it's got, is this product better than that product? Well, this product has 456 reviews. I'd love to be able to see what IP address put up 435 of those reviews, because it's probably the same IP address, and it's just people gaming the system. But why is this not a new problem? Look, I remember having this discussion 5 years ago about Docker repositories, right? If the Docker image, container image to do, I don't know, to do, a very common call that would be in one container, a mail call or something, right? Or a send mail call. And then let's call that Docker image was called .sendmail. Someone would put up a Docker image that was .tendmail, right? And then someone sloppy would not see the tend for the send and hit tend, and boom, they got eaten up, right? It was full of malware. It's a very similar kind of thing, combining sort of the Amazon, review gaming with another way of GitHub's a repo. That's what it is, like all the other repos. And there's a lot of bad crap in our repos. The answer to me for this issue is we need repo firewalls. Sonatype has talked about implementing one. Mitch, as I know you cover Sonatype a lot. They have one. We need a firewall in front of every repo that before I download anything from a repo, it is checked for malware. It's either in a sandbox and opened up, or something happens and it's checked for malware. It's not a GitHub issue, though GitHub is unique in their star system, maybe another way of gaming the system. But we need repo firewalls. I can't even begin to fathom how much safer and better off we would all be if we had firewalls in front of every repo that was checking every package that gets downloaded. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, when I saw this article, it frustrated me so much because we have an open source part of our product, and we worked really hard to get the 300 stars that we have out there, probably, talking to people, getting their opinion, asking them to go out and look at our code. So it hurts, right?
I mean, no more than it hurts an Amazon seller who works really hard getting their product highly rated, or a book, an author, or something.
I know, exactly. But there is a part of the human brain. I'm reading this very interesting book called Sapiens. I highly recommend it. And it talks about our brain having been kind of evolved around two things: gossip and fiction, and how we choose to believe whatever we want to believe. So if you see an open source project out there that's got 100,000 stars, and you look at Kubernetes and it's got probably close to that, Jenkins probably has half that, you might want to question it. But maybe we don't, because we believe what we want to believe. And so this is why this continues, because fake stars is like fake news. If we want to believe it, we're going to believe it because we love gossip and we love fiction. It's a human nature.
That's interesting. I like that, Tracy.
I think there's a safety factor too. Like, I think about my behavior on Amazon of, well, if this has got 3,000 stars and its ratings and it's 4.5, and this has got 17 and it's 4.5, the 3,000 must be better, right? More is better. when in fact it's probably worse. Who knows what it is? I think there's just that natural tendency that whoever is faking the, gaming the system to get more malware out there is just playing upon people's natural predilection to say, I need a quick, easy decision. Unless Guy recommended it to me and I have to go out and figure it out on my own, well, I'll just look at those ratings and go, it's sort of what looks like the best. I'm not going to research it, right? In most cases.
Well, but
Well, yeah, two perspectives here, because we got Tracy, who's like, people will believe what they want to believe.
well,
They'll go
people are
with that.
pre-wired to believe what they want to
They're
believe.
pre-wired, yeah,
Pre-wired
and then
to
you
do that.
and then you got Mitch's, which boils down to can't believe anything. So I'm just not even going to do that. I don't know if I'd recommend calling me, but I'm gonna check with someone and find out. And I just I scratch my head, Mike Vizard, like when I see this sort of thing, and just ask myself, are we just in an age now where the BS is just accelerated? Because I think this BS existed 100 years ago, 200 years ago, with pamphlets of unknown provenance. I think I've used this saying on this show before, that the truth always wins. Is not when it wins, but not whether it wins, it's when. And folks using these high star reviews, it may not even be a breach. It just could be somebody just gaming the system so that they get more popularity. And if it's crap, it's crap. And if you are using these repos or any open source that's highly rated, even by Guy personally, and it doesn't work out for you, at some point you're going to pay.
What is it? Half of statistics are fake and the other half are made up.
Yes,
Yeah, well,
exactly. Lies, damn
That's
lies.
what you come to me for.
Guy,
Yes.
but can you
I
show
always-
me how you do that? Scratch your head, Mike Vizard, like. Oh, okay, there it is. Just
I think
wanted
what we have to
check.
go back to, John, I always bring this up because I think about it all the time. John Schwartz used this term authoritative bias.
Mhm.
And stars are authoritative bias,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, they
so
are.
we have to learn to question authority.
But
And we've
that's
forgotten how
could
to do
be-
that.
That's a double-edged sword. So two things. Number one, how does Amazon try to ungame that system? They've now have reviews that are by a verified purchaser. You've got to be someone who actually bought the thing. And there's ways of gaming that, obviously. But
Yeah, they're reviewing their reviews, Alan, and so then the authority you're trusting is Amazon.
well, at least it was a verified purchaser. But secondly, look, this is a society-wide scourge that affects much more than our software and malware. This is why many Gen Z, and I speak to a lot of Gen Z young people, my kids' age, they don't believe a goddamn thing they read on the internet or see on TV, especially if it's from mainstream media. They think mainstream media is more likely to tell them wrong or lies or non-truths than some dude sitting in his mom's basement in Texas and podcasting once a week. Him will believe, because what does he have to lie about? Who knows what he does when he's not in his mom's basement? But this is a major problem in our society, is, the ability to separate veracity from nonsense, from lies, and in this case, malware, from people it's the ability to separate Russian propaganda from truth, or Chinese propaganda, or whoever the scourge of the day is. How do we do that? And I think it goes back to what Tracy said, is to a certain extent, we're wired. We're wired for clickbait. We're wired for gossip. I
Yep,
don't
we
know
gotta-
what that answer is, but
We're talking 40,000 years ago. We have a lion-headed man who may have started a religion, right? And we believed it as Homo sapiens. It's a very fascinating read, and it answers so many questions for me right now. And I want to point out that, the CNCF used to use stars for qualifying to get into their incubation programs for open source. I believe they've stopped doing that. So maybe they recognize something that this article pointed out that I wasn't aware of before.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's like the old Looney Tune. The stars are really just those things circling around your head after you
Well,
wake
well,
up.
that's all, folks. What's a good way to end it? Hey, what a great Monday conversation. Tracy, Guy, Mitch, Mike, thanks for joining us here. Thank you for joining us on Techstrong Gang. As usual, we've got Techstrong TV following. We've got a lot of great Techstrong TV stuff. If you're into knowledge graphs, I think one of the interviews I've done is going to be playing right during today. It's about a company that's working with graph racks, right? Really cool stuff, Mitch. If you want, Guy, Tracy, check it out. And then, of course, one last plug. Go register. Predict2025.com. Don't miss so much of what we talk about here for the last couple months. We're going to be really diving, and it's going to be a great show. Until then, though, this is Alan Schimmel for Techstrong Gang and Techstrong TV. Thanks for joining us.